I'd like to begin by saying Kaya Wanju to my guests in the chamber this evening, and I'll speak a little bit more to the guests in a moment. But I am very pleased to rise this evening to speak on a significant development in the small town of Toodyay in the wheat belt, and to tell you a little bit about how they are leading the way. At both the national and state level, we've begun truth-telling conversations. As a nation, we're now coming to terms with a history which we previously weren't particularly willing to own, acknowledge or recognise. It's only now, with a national discussion underway, that Aboriginal people are finally beginning to feel supported to speak the truth that they have always known. And from recent activities in Toodyay, it is clear that they are leading the way in Western Australia and across local governments as part of the truth-telling conversation. An opportunity existed, and the Noongar Kaartdijin Aboriginal Corporation began its journey of truth-telling in Toodyay. The Shire of Toodyay is located in a unique boundary of 3 Noongar language groups, the Yued, the Balladong and the Wadjuk. Prior to colonisation, there was a significant Noongar presence across the Toodyay Valley. For the past 2 years, the Aboriginal Corporation, in partnership with the Shire, has undertaken the Gnulla Karnany Waangkiny, our truth-telling project. While the project has been a major collaboration and developed as part of the Shire's museum, it was agreed that the Noongar Karnany Aboriginal Corporation would drive the project. The corporation, in consultation with the museum curator, made a successful grant application to Lottery West, and the Shire agreed to auspice those funds. I've been advised that there was 2 key approaches when they were developing this Gnulla Karnany Waangkiny. First, it was quite deliberative in that it was research-based, and the corporation engaged a historian to look deeply into the archives, search historical references, old newspapers, diaries of explorers and government gazette records. That historian, Dr Chris Owen, is here in the chamber with us this evening, and I thank you for coming, Dr Owen. Secondly, the corporation engaged elders, a traditional owner consultant and others with cultural knowledge. And one of the elders, Uncle Ben Taylor, is also in the chamber with us this evening. Thank you, Uncle Ben, for coming. The resulting project is an installation of a permanent display board at the Newcastle Goal Museum of the Gnulla Karnany Waangkiny that tells the truth of the history for the people of Toodyay, the Indigenous people of Toodyay. And in my research, when I was originally had the opportunity to speak at the launch of this event, one of the things that really struck me, and the name Newcastle Museum reminds me of this, because that was the original name of Toodyay, and it was changed in about 1910, I believe, due to a little bit of a Mail confusion about where Mail was going. But the thing that struck me about the way that we name places is that Westerners, Europeans, tend to name places after people, and our Indigenous population name places after their unique geographical characteristics. And it really struck me as I was kind of preparing for this speech how important it is to think about how we name things and how we speak about, and the narrative that we place around things, because it really does shape the behaviour and the way that we then proceed with those things. So this naming after the land and the geographical features really had me contemplating the importance of recognising the importance of our environment and really connecting to country. And I think that is a really important aspect and difference that we need to recognise now. So while there are several displays on Noongar traditional life throughout the museum, the key component of the Gnulla Karnany Waangkiny project is a dedicated space in an old cell where 10 boards tell Toodyay's dark history, highlighting the displacement, dispossession and unjust treatment of the Noongar people of the region since white settlement. It is a powerful display with a strong Noongar voice that delivers history and understanding from the Noongar perspective. The project reclaims the Noongar voice. The project was recently completed and a cultural celebration was held at the museum, as I said, and the event included a welcome to country, a smoking ceremony and a corroboree with traditional dance and song. Lots of people from the region some school students attending, which I thought was a really beautiful thing to see, the whole range of age of the community involved. And I was very privileged to speak at that event and participate in what was a deeply moving and very heart-connected event. The chairman, Robert Miles, who is also here with us this evening, and I'd also like to acknowledge the directors Charmaine Miles and Patrick Miles, mentioned on the day, to begin truth-telling and then healing, as Aboriginal people, we need to tell our history, and non-Aboriginal people need to listen. Robert added that it's about acknowledging that less than 200 years ago, Noongar people were dispossessed of traditional lands and forced to the margins of society. It is about acknowledging how government policy and decisions by those in power have impacted Noongar families. It's about acknowledging the continued strength and resilience of Noongar people. Robert Miles and the project coordinator Helen Shanks also here today, and has been a fantastic assistance in me and helping me get everyone here today and including me in this project and making me feel very, very privileged to be a part of what is a very special event for the community and a very special development for the community. So Robert and Helen were also invited to present at the annual WA Local Government Association Aboriginal Engagement and Reconciliation Forum in Perth on the 5th of October. At that forum, Helen Shanks told the other shires to remember, as you go about truth-telling in your patch, it will be confronting and even difficult. You may hear and read things that you find don't match with the Australia as you currently understand it. I'm told that since that forum, several of the other shires across Western Australia have inquired about their project, and a delegate of museum curators from across the wider southwest region are meeting in Toodyay. The Shire of Tooday's museum curator is also with us this evening, and thank you for coming as well. This is a really fantastic development and is really the leadership of the Toodyay Shire and the community in building this project and sharing it with other local governments is really significant and a great moving forward for the whole of our state, and I am profoundly impacted by just how important it is for the community, and having the opportunity to sit with Uncle Ben after the launch and him be so kind and generous as to share some of his stories, which, as Helen said, to the local governments, they really are quite confronting at times, but it is that uncomfortable truth that we do need to face. It is really clear that people are wanting to know more about the Aboriginal history of the place that they live. We want to know the truth increasingly. And in the Toodyay Museum is now, so this has allowed the Toodyay Museum to be more inclusive, and it is a permanent display, and it is a permanent reclaiming of the Noongar voice in that space. It's something that we can all do, and it is time to change the conversation. I'm going to race through a little bit of this history, so excuse me if I speak too quickly, because I really do want to say this. Shortly after the founding of the colony of Western Australia, Captain Fremantle recorded this passage in his diary. "We take possession of their country, occupy the most fertile parts which they are in the habit of resorting to for nourishment, destroy their fishing and kangaroo and almost drive them to starvation." Before explorers even headed out to Toodyay Way, the Noongar of Boorloo were already heavily impacted by the arrival of settlers. They were experiencing forced removal, they were dispossessed of their cultural lands and their hunting grounds. Hunger was real. The problems of the Noongar people in that region had already begun. Toodyay was a fertile place, and over the coming years the colonists moved in with appalling disregard for the Noongar people, and they began a rush to take up the land, and conflicts began. After the Pinjarra massacre of 1834, the next main theatre for frontier wars was the Avon Valley. Empowered by Captain Stirling's authority, Lieutenant Bunbury was sent from Perth with orders to make war upon the natives. Bunbury's men were scattered on farms along the Avon River. This was only the beginning of decades of conflict. There is a significant more to that story, but I've got about 1 minute left in my statement, and I would like to say more. But we know that history tells us that conflict has continued, that truth hasn't been told, and that the last time that we had a really significant population shift in attitude was in 1967, when a referendum that allowed our Indigenous population as a minimum to be counted as part of the population. But we've got an opportunity now to include our First Nations voice in the next referendum coming up, and I think that that is a really important step for us. Truth-telling is a really important step for this, for the whole of Australia in terms of healing and reconciliation. And I really do thank the Noongar Kaartdijin Aboriginal Corporation for their amazing work and their collaboration, the Shire of Toodyay, and everyone that was involved in putting together that amazing display. Thank you so much for being willing to do that for our community. Thank you.